The Afrikaans refugees in America are already complaining that
you don't like it here? You don't want to speak the language? You got to speak the language if you want to be here. Don't make no sense. You come over here and you get all these freedoms and liberties and everything, and then you don't want to speak the language. Speak the language. If you don't like it, you can go back where you came from.
But if you're not happy in the U.S., if you're complaining all the time...
Hello everyone, welcome to AfriVlog updates, where truth is not just told, it's unveiled. No filters. No sugarcoating. No distractions. Just raw, uncut reality from the streets to the seats of power. If you are ready to see the world as it is, not as they want you to believe, you are in the right place. Hit that subscribe button and stay informed. We deeply respect and acknowledge every creator whose work is featured here. Your voice matters and your presence is recognized. This is AfriVlog Updates. Welcome back to the AfriVlog Updates channel that breaks down politics with power and perspective. Today, we are diving into a bombshell topic making waves in both the US and South Africa. Why are Black Americans upset with Donald Trump? What's behind the alleged plan to welcome white South Africans into the US? Could Elon Musk be silently backing this move? And where do Latinos fit into this conversation? Buckle up, this is one you don't want to miss. Please subscribe or you won't be able to see us again. Reports are swirling that Donald Trump, if re-elected, plans to open America's doors to white South African immigrants. Now, this isn't just a simple immigration debate. This comes at a time when deportations of Latino families are increasing, when African and Caribbean immigrants face tightening scrutiny, and when Black Americans are questioning why humanitarian compassion is suddenly selective. Many Black Americans are asking where was this energy when Haiti was drowning,
are fleeing to America
when Liberia was begging for
because they
2 years
allege
renewal,
that they are
when
dealing
thousands
with
of DACA
violence.
recipients feared
And I'm
deportation.
confused
Why now and why
because
then?
Donald Trump just
But
gave
it
him a
doesn't end
fast.
there. Some white South Africans are openly expressing their frustration, and not just over crime or land debates. One complaint we've seen go viral: language. Yes, language. Many are saying they are tired of speaking English and want to return to a space where Afrikaans or Dutch heritage is respected.
Okay, let's get into this because the number of these that I'm getting. All right, why can't South Africans speak English all through? All right, so firstly, it's not to say that we can't. We can. It's just that, as a multilingual babe, okay, we slip in and out of our languages because we have 12 official languages, guys. And essentially within the Black community, we prioritize our mother tongue. A child is taught their mother tongue up until a point where you are taught English, right? Which is like later in life. Including white people. White people in South Africa also prioritize their mother tongue, which is Afrikaans. So for us as a nation, as much as yes, majority of everything is communicated in English, culturally, we opt to prioritize our mother tongue versus English. Therefore, when you are speaking, you're going to find yourself slipping in and out. But in addition to that, we also have this thing whereby we have a mix of languages whereby, so let me just give you an example. TV shows whereby you'll have this one that was called Generations. A lot of people know Generations. Oh, Muvango is actually the better one. The show was a vendor show, right? Muvango. But there were people in the show who were speaking Sesotho, speaking Zulu, speaking whatever the case may be. And as a country, we've become so intertwined with each other's languages that I could speak whatever, and I'm guaranteed that someone is going to pick it up because that's just the nature of how and what we are.
the Afrikaans refugees in America are already complaining that
You don't like it here? You don't want to speak the language? You got to speak the language if you want to be here. Don't make no sense. You come over here and you get all these freedoms and liberties and everything, and then you don't want to speak the language. Speak the language. If you don't like it, you can go back where you came from. Where are those posts? Where are those posts? Oh, or is it just for brown people?
So folks, as you may know, a group of AFRIKANERS, white South Africans have come over to the United States this week, and it's their first load of South Africans to assist and help revitalize the farming industry in the United States, and it's quite controversial, as you know. Well, Donald Trump is very disappointed to find out that this group of people who just came over this week actually have no farming experience. They have no knowledge of farming, and none of them actually had farms in South Africa. When they found out that they were actually a collection of security guards, actually part-time rappers, and a guy called Bradley who almost bought a tractor once. So this is obviously a real disappointment, PR exercise failure for the Trump administration. There was even one gentleman that thought irrigation was a TikTok challenge. Folks, the source for this is the BBN. My name is Nick. Let me know what you think about this in the comments, and I would love you guys to give me a follow.
One man even said, quote, "I feel like a tourist in my own land." They say they're being silenced, marginalized, and in some cases hunted. Which brings us to the next controversy. There's been a long-standing narrative, especially among right-wing US circles, that white farmers in South Africa are being systematically killed.
How racist this new administration truly is. This is some of the most racist shit I've ever heard of. In 1913, South Africa had white supremacists running the country, and they created apartheid, which created segregation and discrimination laws against black South Africans. It was whites only South African businesses, whites only South African movie theaters, whites only South African swimming pools. South Africa was on that racist shit just like America treated black folks. So in 1913, white South Africans took over South Africa with force. White South Africans stole land owned by black South Africans. Fast forward to 2025. Three of Trump's biggest supporters are three of the most richest men on the planet. Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, and David Sachs are three billionaires that fully support Trump. Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, and David Sachs are all white South Africans who were born in South Africa, white supremacy, and apartheid. Elon Musk is a white South African white supremacist. South Africa now has a black president. This South African president wants equality in South Africa. He wants the racism to stop, and he wants everyone to be treated equally. Trump and Elon Musk heard about this black South African president wanting equality. Trump immediately stopped all funding to South Africa. There are only 7% of white people in South Africa, but those white people own 70% of the land in South Africa because they stole most of that land from black South Africans. The new black South African president put a new law in place to right the wrongs that were done to black South Africans that had land stolen from them. Just like when European settlers stole America from the natives. Because the South African president wants to give back land that white South Africans stole from black South Africans, that's why Trump and his administration are saying white South Africans are being persecuted and done wrong. But white South Africans are not under persecution.
I mean, the facts are there is no systematic prosecution of white Afrikaner farmers. For the Trump administration to take the view that there's somehow systematic persecution, it's actually problematic and troublesome and damning on the way the Trump administration is receiving its information.
How are they being prosecuted when they the ones who stole the land from black South Africans? Black South Africans are the ones who originally owned that land. What's so wrong with doing right and giving black South Africans their land back? But see, this is the thing. South Africa is not even seizing land like Donald Trump is saying they are. It's a lawful process that's handled in the courts of South Africa. If someone stole land from you and your family, wouldn't you want it back?
Now, the South African government denies that it's a genocide, but the issue is complex. Rural crimes are very real. Murders happen, and some high-profile cases have fueled the claim that white South Africans are under siege. But here's the twist: is this really about saving lives? Or is this part of a broader political play? Let's roll. As Trump ramps up his rhetoric on deporting millions of undocumented Latinos, many are asking, how does he justify welcoming white South Africans, many of whom have no direct ties to the US and may need significant state support to start fresh here? Is this about culture? About votes? About identity politics? Or is it bluntly about race? Let's debunk. Some speculate that Elon Musk, a South African-born billionaire and an influential voice in US politics, may be encouraging this silent wave. Is he whispering into the ears of power? Pushing a subtle repopulation plan? After all, Musk has often spoken about population collapse and the need for more people like us. Who exactly does us include?
Observation about the South African Afrikaners. During the apartheid, they were, "We are Europeans." Now that they want to remain in South Africa, in the land of milk and honey, they are like, "We are Africans." And then Trump said, all European settlers from South Africa can move to the US. And now they are like, "We are Europeans." I don't think they know what and who they are.
Hi guys, I'm a South African living in Canada, and this is really for Americans. I want to thank you Americans for accepting Afrikaner refugees on US soil. And I want to teach you a few things to make Afrikaner refugees feel good about being in the US and being accepted by you. First, let's start with basics like a greeting. Whenever you come across a South African and you want to say welcome to the US, you say voetsak. Voetsak. Say after me, voetsak. This really means that this gives them a warm welcome. And then if you see Afrikaner refugees contributing to society, and I know some of them might complain, but please remember they come from a really difficult place. But when you are in favor of something that they do, you can say "Jou masepoes." I would say it again, "Jou masepoes." It will make them feel so welcome and so wanted. Please follow me for more tips on how to help Afrikaner refugees settle in your beautiful country.
Hey guys, just a word of advice to the white people that came from South Africa that are coming to America, the land of the free. You're coming to America. Welcome to America. I heard you're here now. Here's a word of advice from me to y'all. I know y'all gonna be settling in, I heard it's gonna be in Idaho and North Carolina. That's where y'all gonna be settling. Just a word of advice. The black people here are not like the black folk that you're used to in Africa, the ones that were working for you, the ones that you were talking down on. The African Americans over here, you better not start with them black folk over here. You better watch your back. They're different. You're not going to have maids. You're going to do your own dishes. You're going to clean your own house. You're going to cook your own food unless if you can afford to go to the restaurant and eat some restaurant food. That's just a word of advice. I mean, I just thought I would just, be nice enough to share that little bit of info with y'all. Because in Africa, y'all got maids cooking for you, cleaning for you, doing your yard, doing everything for you. We don't got none of that over here. Because over there, you were paying them little money, change money. Over here, you want a maid, you're going to pay them $20 an hour or more. Because it's a job. Anyway, I just thought I would just share that information with y'all. Have fun in America.
Has anyone gotten on like the farmers TikTok where they're talking about the South African farmers being brought over? So I turned 43 in a couple weeks, and in my lifetime I remember the fall of apartheid. I remember when it ended, and I remember there was the Truth and Reconciliation, I think it was committee or conference. Anyway, they televised it, and that's where people came and they testified to atrocities, and there were people who were also held accountable and had to apologize, right? If I remember correctly, there was also like court hearings as well. But these farmers that are talking about the refugee white African farmers coming to the United States aren't looking at it from the bigger picture. Like, number one, I don't think they're aware of what apartheid is. I don't think they're aware of like how brutal it was and how a lot of these particular white people want that brutality back. They want a segregation of races. That's why they're asking to come here. So I first saw this with Skylar, the farmer in Missouri who was worried about losing his farm due to a cancellation of the contracts that were made under the Biden administration, and how they're not being honored under the Trump administration. So he was really worried about that situation for himself, as one would be, right? So I have nothing but sympathy in that situation. But now that things seem to be a little more resolved, he's still not looking at the bigger picture, because he's talking about the South African farmers coming here and how awesome it is. He doesn't look old enough to me. I don't know how old he is, but he doesn't look old enough to remember the fall of apartheid. And honestly, I don't think most Americans do. My dad had a lot of connections to the international news desk at CNN way back then, and his best friend was a producer. So I think that's why it was something that we saw a lot of in our house. But yeah, these farmers are excited that there's going to be white refugees coming in here to like take sanctuary and help out on farms. I don't think they know that these farmers, for the most part, aren't actually farmers, and that they used slave labor. Like, they mistreated people. It's kind of like Elon Musk's family. People don't seem to understand that emerald mine was exploited labor. You know, it was stolen resources, and it was exploited labor. And that's exactly what these farmers, and they're not all farmers, by the way. A lot of them are just inner city people, AFRIKANERS. And there's a difference there too. Anyway, the gist of it is, they think, it seems, that they're going to have help on their farms by bringing these people over. So I think I don't want to say it for sure, but it feels like they're thinking they're going to get an exchange from undocumented labor from people of color to white legal labor that might be subsidized by the government, because under refugee status, there are some benefits that get extended. So I'm starting to wonder here. I'm starting to wonder if they know what the deal is and how detrimental this is to everybody. You know, I think that we could talk all day long to a lot of these people about the problem with race relations in South Africa, and they may not actually understand it. But I do think that if we spoke to them about possibly this labor situation and their farms, it's a system to take their farms, not to give it to South Africans, but to give it to corporations. So bringing in this labor is not actually going to save them in the long run. It's just a new segue to corporate purchase of their private farms. I have several clients from South Africa who have moved here for various reasons. Even my chiropractor is from South Africa, from Johannesburg. People don't know here that Dutch people, for the most part, it was the Dutch who came into South Africa and brutally took over. Like, they wiped out the people who actually lived there and forced them into subservience. They stole the land. And then they made the people who were African work on these farms. They made the Africans build the cities. And then they pushed all of the people who built the cities into ghettos like Soweto. There's also the science experiments, the medical experiments that took place. They were very Tuskegee style, okay? It's very, very sad. They did it with AIDS. For example, they did experiments on pregnant women, causing pregnancy losses that were pretty devastating. And I mean, a lot of other things. They even experimented on children. The brutality of the police to this day is still very infamous. I've heard the spin from both sides, from my clients, from both sides. I tend to believe that there is no need to be a refugee from South Africa as a white person, because they still have the upper hand. And although locals are fighting back, because they've been losing more and more rights recently. There's even whole cities that don't allow Africans in there. Like, you know, black Africans, they allow white Africans only. And we can't have that here. And that is what's coming. You know, we think Elon Musk is bad, and they all say, oh, that was a Roman salute. He grew up in apartheid. He supports apartheid. He thrived in apartheid. It stands to reason that Elon Musk would want apartheid here, as does the GOP. If you've made it this far, support some South African artists, if you will. Obviously, Trevor Noah is our beloved South African here in the United States. But if you like hip-hop music or really good rap, there's an excellent rapper from South Africa named Youngsta CPT. I love his music. I listen to it regularly. Do not support Die Antwoord. They're bad. They're Afrikaners. We don't like them.
This South African farmer bullshit, which is the most blatantly obvious racist shit ever. It is blatantly obvious the way that we treat white South Africans, who, by the way, for the most part, and I am generalizing here, some of the wealthiest people are well-to-do people in the country. They speak their language. They own most of the land and the property. And somehow they're being granted a fast track to become Americans while they're trying to cut down on immigration from other countries. You know, you get that from where? From the brown people. On March 7th, Trump took to Truth Social to announce he is offering white South African farmers, quote, a rapid pathway to U.S. citizenship, pointing out that South Africa's new land reform push signed into law last year, which lets the government take land without compensation if the property is not being used and there's no intention to either develop or make money from it. Okay? Now, I'm going to give you some context here. They're not just taking land away from white South African farmers. White South Africans, about 9% of the population, owned 87% of the fertile land. Okay? Today, black South Africans make up more than 90% of the population, and they only hold about 4% of all privately owned land. So what they're trying to do is say, hey, we need to fix an historical injustice and figure out if you're not using that land to farm, then we need to have some of that land, not taking all of your entire farm. That's not what's happening. And we need to what? There needs to be equity. And now people are crying because the playing field is being leveled. And so therefore it is now discrimination.
To the 50 Afrikaners who fled to the US, calling themselves refugees. You are not refugees. You are just a case study of white flight dressed up as martyrdom. You're not escaping violence, you're escaping equality. South Africa didn't chase you away. You ran. Yes, South Africa is one of the most violent countries in the world. Yes, brutality exists. But let's be honest, violence affects all communities, not just white farmers. Black, colored, Indian, and yes, white people are all targets of a national crime crisis. What we have is a breakdown in safety, not a white genocide. This is not ethnic cleansing, it's criminal collapse, and running to the US won't fix it. You are part of a 7% minority, but somehow still manages to control over 70% of the wealth. That is not persecution, that's privilege on a guilt trip. And let's be real, if we tried to relocate just half of the Afrikaans population, it would take decades, billions in logistics, and you'd still end up culturally homeless in a country that don't want your apartheid baggage. You're not brave, you're not victims. You're scared of a world where you don't get to be in charge, and that makes the rest of the Afrikaans community cringe, because you make us look weak. South Africa is broken, and it's our problem to solve. So if you don't have the spine to do so, stay gone.
It's catching fire across political TikTok, X, and even academic circles. So let's bring it home. Black Americans are watching this closely and speaking out. Latino communities are rightfully confused. And white South Africans. Many are calling this their escape route. But the question remains, is this about asylum or about assembling a different version of America?
So I have a question. I work with the homeless population, and I know for a fact that we still have plenty of veterans who are homeless, and also U.S. citizens that are homeless. So I wonder how it makes you feel knowing that instead of getting services for the vets and for the U.S. citizens, that this administration has now welcomed white South Africans, and they're going to get all kinds of help from the government. And I want to know, for those who are cheering the horrific deportation or kidnapping, because really that's all it is kidnapping, because there's no court orders and these people are just grabbing people off the street. They're not identifying themselves. It's horrific. So that's my question. What does everybody think about the fact that now our government is bringing refugees from South Africa? And he said something along the lines of they have a rich, long history of all that they've done, and now the way that they're being treated is horrific. So I want to know, the American farmers here that have lost their farms, are those going to these refugees? Are they going to give those farms to the refugees? The people who lost their family farms. So that's my question. What do we think?
The devil works hard, but Elon must work harder. I got on TikTok yesterday and I saw a bunch of videos of people saying how we are supposed to receive a bunch of new Afrikaans. I hope I'm saying it right. But a bunch of white people who are in Africa are coming in as refugees. So I was like, hold on. Let me open the comment section and see what's happening. I opened the comment sections. A bunch of white Africans, as well as South Africans, they are in the comments saying, what are y'all talking about, refugees? These people are not refugees. They are not experiencing any racism in South Africa. Because that's what the story is. That's what the Trump administration is saying, is that these people that are coming to America, they're flying in tonight. They're coming in tomorrow. They're saying that they are fleeing South Africa because they are experiencing racism from the black Africans there. When I tell you 2025 is 2025ing, because I don't have any other words. So we're about to have a bunch of Elon Musk coming in here. But I do want them to know that this ain't no South Africa. So y'all gonna be learning a whole lot of new things. I'm just gonna leave it as that.
So South African farmers are fleeing to America because they allege that they are dealing with violence. And I'm confused because Donald Trump just gave them a fast track to become a U.S. citizen. He called what's happening over there genocide. Genocide? So we gotta be all the way real here. Why them? Why do they get the fast track over here to become citizens? There's people all over the world that's dealing with worse conditions than this. Refugees from wars, famines, real genocide. But they're not getting this special treatment like them. No, sir. So what makes this different for Donald Trump? This clearly looked like favoritism. The ultimate protection for the complexion. Trump, the same person that was trying to ban certain people from coming over here from over there. Y'all remember? Now all of a sudden we got this open door. He feels so bad about them. When, like I said, there's a whole lot of people going through it, not just them. Somebody make this make sense. Y'all telling me I'm tripping? Do y'all think I'm tripping?
I want to hear from you. Do you believe Trump is using immigration to reshape the US? Should humanitarian asylum favor those who already had privilege back home? Or should we be prioritizing those fleeing genuine political and economic collapse? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this breakdown opened your eyes, smash that like button, share this video, and hit subscribe for more truth, context, and commentary. You're watching AfriVlog. Until next time, stay bold, stay critical. Stay black.